Anyone here want to be happy? I recently found a new way to happiness, but I'm going to share that a little bit later. Haman makes a claim against Klal Yisrael. There's a nation which is spread out and separate, which some understand to mean that they're separate amongst themselves, they don't live in peace and shalom with each other. So it's a great time for us to learn and study a little bit more about how we can live with one another and achieve shalom. And in fact, we see many of the mitzvahs of the day of Sukkot, of Purim, focus on our relationship with others, Matanas Levyon, Mishloach Manas. Those are obvious, and arguably also the Suda, something we're supposed to celebrate with others. We complain about a lack of shalom a lot. Who doesn't complain about it? But are we active proponents of shalom? Do we know what to do? Do we realize how much of this challenge is in fact an inner ben adam la'atzmo, between man and himself challenge? And we need to realize how serious a challenge this is. What would you say is the most seductive force in the world? What is the thing most people are drawn after? So listen to this incredible answer of the Maharal. Ein davar ba'olam. There is nothing in the world. Asher adam nimshach elav yosef in machlokas. Incredible. And for good measure, he throws in Ein davar ba'olam asher sofer lo ra yoter min machlokas. Nothing which will get you to worse places than machlokas. This is a tremendous find. Ilu amra lo ayu yichom lagid. That's the most seductive force in the world. This is what people are nipshach to? Machlokas. We naturally think that we are far from machlokas. And maybe, and I hope, that I and others and everyone in this room is certainly far from certain kinds of machlokas. But the Maharal is telling us that there's a terrible force in the world, which we need to actively distance ourselves from. There's a seductive power to machlokas. It is something which is all around. It is everywhere. In fact, another Maharal explains the pasuk we say every week in the Psuki, the Zimmer of Shabbos, Mi ha'isha chavetz chaim v'chulei, Bakei shalom v'radfeo. Ask for peace. Bakesh. Bakashta misham. Tainli ami bakashi, shelasi. Ask for peace. Run after it. Chase it down. Why didn't he chase it down? That's such a strong language. Bakesh v'radfeo. Run after it. The idea is shalom is something which is naturally far from us. And we need to go and chase it. Otherwise we won't have it. In fact, it's really basically the fortune of Chazal. Amr Chizkiah. Gadol hu shalom. Greatest peace. Shekol mitzvahs haTorah ksiv behen. All the mitzvahs say languages like this. Kisira, when you see. Kiyatifka, when you run into. Kiyikra, when it happens in front of you. Kitibnet, when you build a house. Kisheba mitzvah liyadcha atazak lasos. When the mitzvah comes, adach mitzenu. You have to do it. Ki. When? Ki. Abel shalom maksibo. Bakei shalom v'radfeo. Get out of your place and run after it. Find it. Go look for it. Let's share one more word on how essential shalom is. Pasuk b'chukosai. Psukim starting b'chukosai teilechu. Some of the most inspiring, positive psukim in the Torah. Great brachos that are given to one who does mitzvahs and is involved in Torah. Amal Torah, one of the most famous Rashis in yeshivas. Yomel b'Torah. B'chuksai teilech, v'esmismosai tishmor v'esisamosam, v'chulei, v'nasati gishmecha v'titam, and I will give the rains in their time, v'nan aretz yivula, and the land will give its produce, v'etz asadi ten pirya v'isi l'chamtai shetabatzir, v'chulei, v'yashatem lebetach b'artzechem, and you'll sit in peace in your land, v'nasati shalom b'aretz, and I will give peace. Rashi explains, Shema Tomru, Harimach Harimishta. What's the idea? Why is the end of the Shalom, end of the psukim of the bracha, these incredible psukim in Atati Shalom Baritz? You have food, you have drink. Im ein shalom klum. If there's not peace, there's nothing. Tamalomar achar kol zos in Atati Shalom Baritz, and that's why Kadosh Baruch Hu has to give a shalom, because otherwise all the other brachas would be insignificant. Mikan shalom keneged kulam. And what's the idea? Simply read, we think it means there won't be any more wars. Iran will get off our back, or we will get on their backs. Or President Trump will get on their backs, and it'll be done. By the time we fly, or don't fly. But Moshe finds us, it can't mean that. That's what the pasuk. That's what the pasuk coming to tell you. Default is you would have thought you have food, but you have chayalim all around, people warring on you. That's nothing. Of course, that's nothing. That's obvious. During wars, there's no food, there's no drink. People getting ravaged, people on terribly on edge, sitting, getting killed. You don't need to teach in such a situation. Ain't shalom, ain't klum. That's obvious. Says Rav Moshe. Rather, it means in a time of relative peace from the outside. In a state which looks fine and has plenty of food and plenty of real estate, but the people in the land themselves aren't getting along. That's the idea of Nasati Shalom Baritz. On that it says Amen Shalom Ein Klum. Fine, that Iranian friend, so funny. People wait, let's get rid of this problem, everything will be okay. Everything's okay. You want to get rid of the problems, but they're inner problems. And on that we say, why? Listen to what Moshe says. A situation no one would ever want to live in is not having food. Holocaust people speak about hunger, what it was. Our grandparents. The evil that comes from a lack of shalom between people is worse than that. Worse than hunger. Says Rav Moshe, why? Mishum, listen to these words. Sheruach HaTorah, the spirit of Torah, the sense of Torah, the life of Torah, became a mitzvahs, a midas tovas, and fulfilling mitzvahs, a midas tovas, a good characteristics. Miskalkalim mizeh. When people are at war with each other, we will fighting each other inside. Real estate plenty, food plenty, high tech plenty. Everything's there. Enemies from outside, no problem. But everybody's fighting with each other. Everything's miskalkil. The midas tovas, the ruach HaTorah, the ratzon HaTorah. The essential life is off. The life of Torah, Moshe is telling us, operates in specific conditions. When everybody's at each other's throats, the whole spirit of Torah and good midas and kiyum mitzvahs is thrown off. Everything's out of whack. Ikar achayim miskalkalim. On the outside, you think you have it good. No. Nothing's developing in a good way, in a healthy way. It's all messed up. So I'd like to discuss how these introductory words about how important shalom is and how difficult it is. 3 types of shalom that we can think about. Being someone who settles a machlokas that other people are engaged in. Being a general promoter of shalom. And finally, finding shalom inside of ourselves. Of course, our most known historical example of one who settles a machlokas between others is, of course, who? Aaron HaKohen. You all know it. Says the pasuk, Vivku es Yisrael es Aaron. Shloshim yom, who? Kol Beis Yisrael. The whole Jewish people, for 30 days, cried over Aaron. Incredible, just to think about. The Pashtus episode, before we go further, 30 days of crying for a human being. Incredible. Rashi says, Kol Beis Yisrael. Who is crying? Hanashim v'anashim. The men and the women. Why? With Pishai Aaron, what was it about Aaron? His Kedusha, because of the Kohen Gadol? No. With Pishai Aaron, Rodev Shalom. Umatil Ava ben Bali Meriva ben Ishlishto. He ran after peace. Baki Shalom Rad Feo. That was Aaron. He understood this. He realized everything we've taught till now. And Umatil Ava, and he placed love. His Matil Shalom ben Bali Meriva. Between those, he would look. Who's fighting? We usually see people fighting, we run the other way. I don't want to get involved, I can't get involved, not my business, not this. Aaron, the opposite. That's what he was looking for. He was Rodef that. How did he do it? So the famous Avadar of Nassan says like this. Let me share it with you. Shnei b'nei Adam shasam riva zenze. They're fighting. Halach Aaron b'yashav lo yitzel echad me'ah. V'amalo b'ni, my son. Rei chavercha, mal omer. I saw your friend. Right? Let's make it Shmuel and Yaakov. So Aaron will go over to Shmuel and said, I saw Yaakov. You don't know what's going on with him. Mitar of this liba. Yaakov is happy. Yaakov is sitting and making fun of Shmuel. But that's what Aaron said. He says, Mitar of this liba. He's not himself. The car's, he's ripping his clothes. How can I see my friend after what I did to him? And I'm embarrassed. It was my fault. So Shmuel's sitting feeling guilty. Shmuel's happy. He's out and he's reviewing all the jabs he did at Yaakov. But that's not the story Aaron told. No, Shmuel. Yaakov is beside himself. He's tearing his clothes. And he doesn't know how to look at you for what he did. And Aaron would continue, Kehena, these things, until he would get the kin off. V'holich Aaron, then what would he do? Go to his friend. Right? If he was by Yaakov, then he goes to Shmuel. Keep getting names mixed up. But he was by Yaakov, and then goes to Shmuel. And he says to Shmuel, you don't know what's going on. B'ni rei chaver chama omer, mitar b'slibo. The chorus begun of, Harley, Echias says, Einai veres chaver boshti heimenu. Shani usher sacharachti outside. The whole story, he's so upset. He's ripping out his clothes. He's tearing at his teeth. It's terrible. Now this takes time. This is time. Aaron was not a person who wasted time. It's a long time. It's not here. It's in a few lines, right? But it was all types of ways, and he had to speak to each one in a way which would to speak to the woman. He spoke to the women also. He had to speak to the woman in a woman's language, and the men in a men's language. And what happened? They finally said, Shmuel, Yaakov, right? They didn't review too much. Maybe later they reviewed, but then they were buddies already. Gofufu v'nishko, they hugged and they kissed, all because of Aaron did. Lakach number of Yivko as Aaron Shloshim Yom Kol B'Yisrael. By the way, less famously, it's good to keep reading. So the Chazal say another aspect of why everyone cried for Aaron. Who is the everyone? Listen to this. Vod kama lofim hayib Yisrael shnikru b'shmom Aaron. There were thousands of Yiddish kinder named Aaron. As today. Why? Shemoli Aaron lo b'olam. If it wouldn't have been for the peace that Aaron put between his father and his mother, grandmother, grandfather, he wouldn't be there. So the parents used to call their kids, like they knew what their shalom bayis was like before Aaron got involved, and they knew how it was improved through Aaron's efforts, and they would call their children Aaron. Incredible. It means all those named Aaron. The Medrash saying Pshat, what's the Kol Yisrael? What does it mean everybody? So the standard Pshat, what's brought in Rashi, is the men and the women. But it wasn't just the men and the women. The men and the women is all the Aaronites, all the Aarons. We're all crying. All those named Aaron. And perhaps all their parents and siblings, grandparents, children, friends, and all that had a special crying for him. My friend, grandfather, uncle, me, is only here because of that man. Aaron was the one. And there were thousands like that. And they were all crying. Imagine, friends, looking back at your life one day and seeing children's and generations in the world because of your efforts for peace. And having a few of them named after you wouldn't feel so bad either. And we asked at the very beginning of the Shmuze, does anybody here want to be happy? Here's the new secret of happiness. So the pasuk says, in Mishle Yud Beis Kaf, Mirma belev chorshe ra, deceit lurks in the hearts of those who plot evil. Uliyotze shalom, simcha. Those who counsel towards peace achieve joy. Uliyotze shalom, simcha. Now listen to the three pshatim. Listen how each mefarish goes into a different way. So Rabbein Yonah says on this pasuk, why? What do you think? Im yoetz adam atza shalom bin adam lechaver shneim yavud. The people you made shalom with, like we just saw from Aaron, love you. Ki yodo asher ein zakim aven emana. Wow, Aaron was such a good person. He made shalom between us. He went out of his way to help us and to bring our relationship together, to bring our marriage to a new place. So you have a lot of people who love you. Everybody loves you. True friends, not today's friends, digital friends. Friends. Rabu avim yismach bem ki sinas chabrias tolid daga va'avasim simcha. When people are against you, it makes you nervous and anxious and concerned and worried. When people love you, you feel joy. Such a push and nice shot. The Malbim says a little bit differently. Shashalom hu kiyam hametzias. Shalom, as we've been saying, is the very fabric of reality. Va'ra'u chorban hametzias. And Ra is the opposite of that. Yotzei Shalom, Hamethecha B'K'tiyim Matzias. The Yotzei Shalom, those who counsel towards peace, those who are thinking about how to increase peace in the world. Vashon kol kol tov shalom habayis v'medini. They're making shalom bayis and making shalom between people, between states, etc. in a true way. Hema ovim lahativ v'meklal v'yotzim l'kaim lahachzik tov kol tov v'yoshev tzedek. They're increasing forces of goodness, true force of goodness in the world. So what's the idea? Yotzei. So how does that produce happiness? Yotzei shalom heim leim simcha ki atov yismak b'masav. It's a natural thing that when you do something good, you're happy about it. A person does a chesed, he feels good about it. So a person's Yoed Shalom looks at what he's producing, and that gives him joy. What I do. So according to the Rabbeinu Yonah, let's follow this carefully. According to Rabbeinu Yonah, what's the simcha? Because there's so many people who love me. And when people love you, you feel good about it. That's a nice, good, natural feeling we should all have. According to the Malbim, it's the fact that I'm involved in happy things. I'm involved in good things. The pu'ulot that I do, which are of a positive nature, make me happy, make one happy. And finally, I think the Gra says the deepest pshat. Listen to this. It says Rabbeinu Gra. Aval osam hanosim eitzos l'shalom b'li shum mirma. Those who give true eitzos for peace. Very important. B'li shum mirma. Right? They don't have agendas. They're not thinking about They're not thinking about the Nobel Peace Prize. They're not thinking about what people are going to say about them. B'li shum mirma. Someone who's purely about peace. Heim tameh b'simcha. Ki libam nachon ubatuach. Their heart is full. Ben misyarmeh higolas libam. According to the Gra, it's a deep inner joy which the Yoed Shalom has. The inside of you. It's not that you're producing. It's an inside of you. It's a conscious, a sense. A leiv batuach v'nachon. Leiv tar bra lukim. That in myself I'm an essence, a shtick good of goodness. So that's a new secret of happiness, friends. It's a joy. Yoetzei Shalom, someone who could be like Aaron. Aaron was a tremendously happy person. Why? Because he was Yoed Shalom. He could look at all the people around who loved him and feel joy in that. That's good. It's a positive thing to want to have friends in a good way. You shouldn't worry too much about what they think in a negative way, but there's a very positive, very big positive thing. People like you. That's positive. It's a joy of being involved in great things. It's the inner joy of being a person with a clear heart and conscience. 3 pshatim. Let's discuss, we said we're going to discuss 3 types of shalom. So the first one was that, it was asiyah shalom. Let's talk about being a general promoter of shalom. We mentioned before that Aaron was matil ahava. The Rashi we read before was that he placed ahava. Through his efforts, he was matil ahava. But there's another Rashi, this time in Torah, at the very, very, very end of the Torah, when we talk about Mises Moshe. And the pasuk says, "V'yivku b'nei Yisrael es Moshe ba'arvas Moav shloshim yom." By Moshe Rabbeinu, it says they also cried for 30 days, but it doesn't say Kol Beis Yisrael. It says B'nei Yisrael. By Aaron it's Kol Beis Yisrael, here it's B'nei Yisrael. Rashi explains the Scharim, the men. This has to be gone into, especially on Moshe's yard site. Abo ba'aron, mitoch shahaya rodiv shalom, v'nosein shalom bein ishli reu, bein ishli labayla, never kol beis Yisrael, has Scharim and Akevus. Aaron had a certain mila, at least in his involvement with the nation, that he was the matil shalom, more than Moshe Rabbeinu was. I'm sure Moshe Rabbeinu was involved in his own way, but Aaron was on a different level, therefore everybody was crying about, everybody was crying, the men, the women, as we say, Gans Klal Yisrael. But the Lashon Rashi uses here is not matil ava, but nosein shalom. So what's the difference between those things? What is it? It's the difference between being matil ava v'shalom and being nosein shalom, placing or giving. Okay. So this is from Rav Shraga Neuberger, who's Eklund Sefer on Shalom Bayis. He gave me many of the sources of the Shmuze. He wants to say that the idea of Nesina Shalom is a more passive involvement that Aaron engaged in. Matil Shalom is the active involvement. That was the first thing we're talking about. You see people, roommates, friends, etc., Koshken yourself, family members, and you can make peace and get involved. That's Matil Shalom, that tremendous Mila. But there's nothing called Nesina Shalom. And he brings from that same Chazal in Avos Reb Nosson, it says a little bit later, Kishaya Aaron Mahalach B'derech. Aaron was just walking. He had a little bit of a break from his shalom making activities. Walking. Aaron was trying to get up to 5,000 steps, 10,000 steps, but Aaron was walking. You would meet a bad dude, we would say. Oh, ba'adam ra, oh ba'adam rasha, v'nosin lo shalom. Aaron was nosin shalom to everybody. How are you? Shalom aleichem. L'machar bikish osto ish lavor aveira. That person was thinking about doing an aveira, and he says to himself, I'm going to see Aaron later on. He's going to see me. It's lo na'im for me to be someone that the great Aaron gives a shalom to. I don't know if you've ever had this feeling before you went to an Adam Gadol. I know I always try to do a big tshuva before you go into Nashim Gadol. It's not going to feel good. Aaron is so holy, and he's so clean, and he looks at me, and he's so friendly to me, and so nice to me, so positive to me, and then I'm going to do this? Look at that, see that, say that. And that would stop a person from doing sin. So first off, we have to say, because I'll refer this as this is Aaron's cure of efforts. This is Rabbi Heshiv Melvin. The pasuk says about Aaron that he was a great Makarev, one of the first Makaravim. He brought many back with tshuva. But Rabbi Newberger wants to contend that this would certainly include Ben Olachaver things also, and increasing people kind and shalom living with each other. What if there was that person going to do? Sometimes it was this type, sometimes it was that type. But you can imagine a person saying, I'm not going to yell at my wife. Aaron was so peaceful to me, so nice to me, I'm going to yell at my wife. I'm going to speak lashon hara about my employer. I'm going to say something not nice to my coworker. No, I can't do that, right? It was all types of averis Aaron was saving from. So we see another category of shalom, being through the way we carry ourselves, being promoters of peace. And this, let's think for a second, is far more relevant for most of us on a daily basis than the first category, as important, as necessary, and as great as that first category is. Baruch Hashem, we aren't often witness to people really all out fighting with each other. We know people. But everyday mamish, there are opportunities for us to promote or defeat shalom through our actions. One way is our oval or manner. When people see us, do they see, besides when we're fighting and learning? Besides when we're fighting and learning, which we should, with gifting, like Yisrael said, with venom. You're supposed to fight and learn like venom. But besides that, when people see us, do they see calm, peaceful, connected to others, connected to God people that they want to be like? It's a question we all have to ask ourselves. But it's also in little things. Let me give you some little examples. Someone cuts us off as we're driving, and we're upset. Is our response a shalom dika response or not? You can say something, but there's a way to say it being an ish shalom, or the way not to say it being shalom, and there's a way to say it not as an ish shalom. Someone says something we don't like. Happens to all of us. Is our distance from them, and perhaps our vilification of them, at least in our minds, one a peace-loving person should have? He said something to you. How would Aaron react if someone said something to him? Someone said something negative to him. What would he do? What would the Chavetz Chaim do? What would a peace-loving person do? We're waiting in line at the supermarket. It's Erev Shabbos, the clock is ticking. And the person in front is taking too long. Is our vibe a shalom-loving vibe? Or are we trying to kill them with our glare and stare? When we disagree with others, as we all do. I disagree with people all the time. I'm not saying I'm a good example of anything. I'm a good example of disagreeing. My mother always said, David, you'd be a good lawyer. I had to go into rabbinics, and I was hoping for... Okay, so... Finally, a laugh. It's like my third attempt. Okay, thank you. Okay, good. How about that? A little show. Okay, guys. When we disagree with others, as of course we will, is it in a shalom way? Shalom dika way? Or are we totally cutting off the other person? You have my way or the highway. That's just absolute foolishness. These are 4 examples, but there are countless others that if we open our eyes, we'll see on Yamin Val Small, on our right and our left. They're being a Shalom Dika person. And again, I emphasize this because I think often We hear about Shalom in the first Aaron example, which is very, very dramatic and very, very outstanding and deserves to be spoken about. But for many people, you don't necessarily see it, and that's a big step, a time commitment, and a person commitment. You have to be the right person, make sure they don't end up pitting you. It's lo pashut. But we can all be promoters of peace. And the third and final Shalom I want to speak about is the Shalom inside of ourselves. There's an amazing Sforno in Parshas Pinchas. Pinchas, through his seemingly very, very unfriendly act, received an incredible gift, a bris shalom, a covenant of peace. And there's definitely a big lesson that he received it for his zealotry, but now is not the time. L'chein amor, hinini nosein lo es brisi shalom. I give him my covenant of peace. Now, Rabbi, after speaking about shalom for 25 minutes, we understand how much is in those words. And we're just scratching the surface of shalom, which is lamala me'akol. Ein shalom, ein klum. Brisi shalom. But listen to the amazing Sforno. What was the shalom from Himalach HaMavos? From death. He was saved from death. Why do things fall apart? Physical things, mental things, teams. Hisnagdus ha'afachim. Contrasting forces that are at each other. Hitnagdut ha'afachim. There are ha'afachim in the world, men and women, Yisrael v'amim, Guf and Neshama. They're misnagid, definitely. Those are against each other in different ways. Aids are kenegdo. It's interesting. Aids are kenegdo. There are many, many forces in the world which are against them, but there's a hisnagdus between them. There could be. And Kadosh Baruch Hu says, Pinchas, I'm giving you a brisi shalom. What does that mean? Not that everybody will be nice to you the whole time, but that the tremendous forces inside of yourself, which are pushing one way or the other, won't be pushing any other way. You will live in a tremendous personal harmony, where all parts of you will be going in the same direction, without a machlokas inside. Well, what happened, right? Let's check the economist's prediction. What happened? He's definitely striking yesterday, My son said to me about a recent analyst today, Abby, you want to know what's going on? Listen to him, and it's the opposite. Yeah? Pinchas lived for hundreds of years. Mikol Sharon Shidor, Achiv, Shahayu, Mishamish, Mishkan, Shila, Bisman, Pilagish Begiv, which was in Shoftim hundreds of years later. Yeshua passed away. Everybody else in the generation passed away. And there was one man still standing. Pinchas. The Kolsha came, Ledivri Omer Shalio. Pinchas means he's still with us. So Pinchas either lived for hundreds of years. You understand what it means, hundreds of years? This person, a Brisi Shalom, lived for hundreds of years. Or he's still with us. Elio. Why? The Bris Shalom. What kills us? What shortens our days, stresses us out, makes our blood pressure rise? The battles inside of us. The Hisnagdus Hafachim inside. The body tells us this, our neshama tells us that. We can't get a good night's sleep because of the lies we tell and live, and inconsistencies we don't want to face. That shortens your life. Hashem blessed Pinchas that everything in him should work together in perfect harmony. All parts of you will be aligned and happy with each other, Pinchas. When you're like that, you can live forever. So accordingly, the lesson for us, if we want to be true unto Shalom, we need to more and more find peace in ourselves. The more we can live in inner harmony, the more we'll be a force to bring harmony to the world. And this certainly definitely includes mental and physical health and proper actions. And let me add that one of the most obvious ways to look for internal peace is that we establish today a healthy relationship with technology, things from outside of us, that which are taking away. No one even talks about that. The inner peace which a person had to be able to use to think for himself, to sit with yourself. No. That's peace. That's shalom. That's a bris shalom. It must be noted that today is the yahrzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu, who probably with greater inner harmony than any human being ever. Hashem yitin v'yazor, that we should more and more delve into the tremendous topic of shalom. We should make peace between warring factions. We should promote shalom to others and our very being. And finally, we should all be zocha to inner peace. Amen. Ken Yiratzon.